Good evening, ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, children of all ages, and welcome back to the Great Move Rad podcast. I'm your host, Gaston, with my co-host,
Jerryofdom!
Jerryofdom, and today we are taking a look at Black Panther: Wakanda Forever, the final entry into MCU's Phase 4.
Their worst phase ever in existence.
To be fair, it had high things to come up against, but yeah. Phase 4 proves that quantity does not equal quality.
Yep.
Um,
She-Hulk.
So, let's dive into our review of Black Panther Wakanda Forever with our previewing thoughts. I'm going to start today. I was very excited for the film. I'm a big fan of the original Black Panther. I wanted to see M'Baku again. I was very interested to see how they would handle Chadwick Boseman's passing. It was everyone knew, and in case you don't know, the guy who played Black Panther died in 2020. Uh, colon cancer. Horrible way to go. But how they were going to handle that was going to be hard. The lead character had to pass. And they were not going to recast him, which apparently got flack, but I think that is absolutely the right choice. And then on a more happy note, also Atuma looked dope as heck. More on Atuma later.
Um, what? I honestly didn't know how to feel about this movie because of the death of Black Panther. In real life, I was just kind of like, wow. I liked the first one. I know a lot of people the first one was like one of their favorite movies, including my own mother, whose favorite Marvel movie is Black Panther. Um, and there's a lot of people, and I thought it was good. Wasn't my favorite, and this one I was just kind of like, well, I don't know what the heck they're gonna do. And to be honest, because I was so disappointed with past, Marvel, I was just kind of like, eh,
Hmm,
I don't really care what happens. Just hopefully it's good.
hmm,
I didn't have high expectations.
fair enough. Black Panther is in my top 10 MCU films. It's number 6 on that list. I really liked it. It handles it super well. But we're not talking about the first one today. We're talking about Wakanda Forever. So, how to do light spoiler summit for this film based on the trailers. This is what I got. In the film, the leaders of Wakanda fight to protect their nation in the wake of King T'Challa's death.
Yep.
That's just what the trailers let you know. Namor's in it. So, with all of that being said, because that obviously took a long time, let's dive into our character study. No light spoilers here, but no big spoilers.
Nah, big spoilers.
Not big spoilers.
Horribly massive spoilers, guys.
So let's talk about Shuri, who takes the lead role, portrayed by Letitia Wright, the Princess of Wakanda who designs new technology for the nation. Wright was given a larger role in the film following the death of Chadwick Boseman, who starred in previous MCU media as T'Challa. Wright said that Shuri turns her technology as a way to grieve T'Challa, like turns to it. Would you like to start with Shuri?
Um, I enjoyed her as a character, and in this movie, she was really good. And at times, I enjoyed her more than past experiences. But it's very mixed for me how I liked her in this film.
Hmm.
Wasn't my favorite, but it also wasn't something that I look at and say it was a bad performance. She did amazing with what you worked with, but to me, it just wasn't.
Hmm. Yeah, for everyone who's used to Shuri being comedy relief, that's not this film.
That's what got me.
Yeah, a lot of people loved that she was so funny, but this is definitely a dramatic role. And she brings the goods in the drama of it. The portrayal of grief is so real and use it turning to technology to cope. Like that reflects how most people deal with it is turn to anything else instead of confronting their grief. It's an entirely different Shuri. It's a new level altogether. I have nothing negative to say. Um, I think that she handles the part super well. And as she's now got this larger role, who knows if we'll see the comedy relief Shuri again? We might not. And I'd be okay with it, I think. She, especially towards the climax, I really was in with her performance.
I think just because I wasn't expecting it brought it down a bit for me because it very much was just like a wall all of a sudden. You're like, whoa, okay.
there's
Everything is really happening.
there's definitely a tonal shift in the franchise as a whole. Black Panther, while not a comedy, is like spectacle. The Wakanda itself, it's got a tight story with great performances and some great comedy moments. Wakanda Forever is a big introspective film. It's about grief and reflection and the cost of hatred, which I think is a logical step forward for Black Panther, but it's very different than what came. So let's move on to Nakia. Nakia, who's portrayed by Lupita Nyong'o, I hope I'm saying it right, a former war dog and undercover spy for Wakanda from the River Tribe. Nyong'o said Nakia has matured following both the blip and the death of T'Challa, explaining that her character's priorities have shifted and sharpened, while adding that Nakia still remains the one you call when you're in trouble. So I get to open with this one. So Nakia is far more reserved in this one than in Black Panther, and it fits well with the story. As I said, we're going into a more in-depth, cerebral tale instead of the spectacle. The performance is solid. The role and how it fits into the story is good, and it's a good follow-up for the first film. That progression. She's not my favorite, but she's not bad.
Yeah. I enjoyed her more in this film.
Okay.
I really liked her character in this, and it was interesting to see what they did with her and to see the certain things that played out.
Mm-hmm.
And I enjoyed seeing her because she was more of a serious character in the first one. Her reactions in this one were normal to me. You know, that made sense. Shuri, I do understand the grief and all that. It just threw me through a loop.
Mm-hmm.
That's about all. I think if I watched the second time, I'd probably enjoy her even more because I did enjoy her in this movie. I don't know.
When you expect it, though, it's different
Yeah,
than when you get the curveball.
but Nakia made sense to me, and she was very interesting to watch and to see how she portrays with everything, and to see her royalty that she still has, and to see her loyalty that she has to Wakanda.
Yeah. So let's talk about Okoye, portrayed by Danai Gurira, the general of the Dora Milaje, Wakanda's all-female special forces. Okoye later takes on the mantle of the Midnight Angels, along with another Dora Milaje, Anika. It is revealed in the film that Okoye's husband, Wakabi, portrayed by the growing star that is Daniel Kaluuya, was imprisoned following the events of Black Panther. Greer said that the film would explore many facets of Okoye's humanity, which is also interesting. You get to lead with this one.
I really liked her in this film. She was my second favorite.
You a bald-headed
First
demon.
favorite is yeah. She was really good, and she portrayed everything well. And to see how she reacts to everything is interesting, and how she plays out with things. And watching what happens throughout the story with her, I enjoyed, and her acting was amazing.
Indeed. Um, by and large, Wakanda Forever is carried on several strong key performances. Like the first four people we talk about here today have incredibly strong performances, and then the last person we're going to talk about has probably the strongest performance in the film by and large. But Okoye, like Guerrero, it's that new level. Every character reaches a new level in this film. Everyone we've seen before has that new aspect that is handled so well. Um, and then, yeah, some of her acting near the beginning of the second act. Holy cow! And I loved her and Atuma's fight choreography. Holy smokes! I don't think spear wielders have ever looked so cool. It was incredible. So now let's talk about M'Baku, portrayed by Winston Duke, a powerful warrior and leader of Wakanda's mountain tribe, the Jabari. Duke indicated that following the Jabari's involvement in the events of Infinity War and Endgame, that the tribe is no longer isolated from the rest of Wakanda. He also felt M'Baku was trying to figure out how to move forward in this new world for Wakanda, much like many in the real world were trying to do in regards to the pandemic. And I can see that relation, the comparing of how to move forward in these things. And M'Baku, I get to start, is back with another scene stealing performance, with the key difference being some incredible dramatic beats that also steal the scenes that he's in. It's still not as much as people probably would want to see him, but he is still my favorite. He is still awesome, and he's one of those characters who I don't think could get too much screen time, opposite of what we said about Korg with Thor: Love and Thunder.
Yeah. I, l- I, I'm gonna have to agree with you. M'Baku's my favorite.
Ooh, love
And
M'Baku.
there's just one thing that I want to see him do, and that's him have the herb. Because this man is already stupidly strong, is insane. And I'm like, what's gonna happen if he had that?
Like, could you imagine how strong he would end up
It's a
being?
tame Hulk.
Well, that's the thing, is like the big thing that I always remember is in Black Panther 1, he lifts up a member of the border tribe with one arm, which in superhero film isn't uncommon, until you remember that M'Baku has no superpowers. He's just that strong. A full grown man, one hand.
Just imagine if with it.
I know.
Freaking tosses some cars like it's nothing.
One of the Ion Pudge's friends commented with Endgame in that scene where they're all running forward. They're like, you've got Super Soldier Captain America with Mjolnir. You've got Thor, the God of Thunder. Black Panther with the heart-shaped herb. And then there's M'Baku, who's just a very strong man right up in the front line with them. Like, everyone else is further back, but not M'Baku. It's amazing. So let's talk about I always have a hard time. Riri Williams. Portrayed by Dominique Thorne. An MIT student and genius inventor from Chicago creates a suit of armor that rivals the one built by Tony Stark. Director Ryan Coogler noted that Williams is a foil to Shuri, adding, "There's a thread of similarity between the two, but are also very, very different." With Williams and Shuri's relationship representing a similar exploration of the diversity of the Black Panther experience, as T'Challa and Killmonger's relationship did in Black Panther. You get to start with the person who is coming to be known as Ironheart.
I'm gonna be honest, I did not care about her whatsoever in this film. She was used as the what do you call the object that's important to
The
the film?
MacGuffin.
She was just a MacGuffin. That's literally her whole role in this film, and she just I could have cared less. I did not care about her. I was like, she's here, whatever. That's how I felt.
Mine is pretty similar to what you said. It's a decent introduction for Ironheart. She's never annoying, but is never given enough to do to make her compelling. It sets the table for her series, which is definitely her purpose of being involved. And I believe that if you just change what the Talikans are mad at, you could remove the entire American side of the story, which unfortunately would include Ross, who's always a treat, but he didn't need to be there.
Well, again, Ross in this film does not.
That's why we're not actually going to mention Ross in our character.
Yeah.
He's there, and it's great to see him. Ross is great. He didn't need
But
to be there.
there didn't feel like a reason for this.
He didn't need to be there. He's only there to get Ross in the movie.
Yeah.
It's just
Well,
checking
yeah.
the box. Which I get.
Could have been like, some scientist in America made this machine, and this is what's causing problems.
Yeah.
They don't need to go capture them.
Like I get why they want Ross in. He was a popular part of Black Panther 1, and probably a controversial take, but he's like the white representative in the film, in the first film. Inclusion, all that, people would have complained if there wasn't a white lead in the first film, which is stupid, but that's the world we live in. So he has to be in this film. It's checking a box, but Martin Freeman is such a good actor and Ross such a good character that they should have given him a more meaningful reason of being there instead of just here's Ross.
Some things with Ross in this film, but they weren't anything important to the film.
It wasn't anything we didn't know other than the mild revelation of Valentina's role.
Yeah.
That was the
Oh, yeah,
only
she's in
thing.
this movie too.
Again, why? Could have been done, probably should have been done in Captain America and the Winter Soldier, which is the final episode name. So Falcon the Winter Soldier. Spoilers for that if you haven't seen it, but it's what, 2 years, a year now.
Yeah.
But just like have that be involved in there. Have Ross be involved in that show for Pete's sakes. So let's move on to our second last character. We're going to talk about Namor, who's portrayed by Tenoch Huerta Meja. the king of Talokan, and I hope I said the name right. The king of Talokan, an ancient civilization of underwater dwelling people who refer to him as the feathered serpent god Kukulakan. I think I said it right. I do it in the M'Baku voice to get the pacing of the word right.
Yeah.
Huerta said Namor decides to get involved in the surface world after T'Challa publicly reveals the truth of Wakanda at the end of the first film, which consequently puts Talokan in jeopardy, leading Namor and his people to take action and protect themselves. Huerta also confirmed that the character is a mutant, as in the comics, and Huerta called Namor an anti-hero, explaining that it was important to both him and Cooler to humanize the character by making his motivations understandable, despite him having an antagonistic role in the film. Cooler, well, this is a long thing that they've said about him. He was like the major point of interviews. Cooler was enthused to include Namor's really unique features from the comics, like his ankle wings and pointy ears. He also described the character as kind of an asshole, kind of a romantic, and just incredibly powerful. Huerta learned a Mayan language for the role, as well as how to swim. And I get to start with Namor. And it's hard to talk about Namor without getting into heavy spoilers. His performance is really strong, especially for the first half of the film, but the writing lets him down in the second half of the film, in my opinion. I can't explain why, more in the spoiler section, but I think they missed the mark on making him an anti hero. To me, he just comes across as a villain.
Yeah. I I don't know. I had mixed views on his motivation in this film. I was kind of like in all honesty, the overarching plot in this movie does not seem that interesting to me. I didn't really care. What interested me was the characters,
Mm,
but the actual plot I don't really care about in the movie.
mm,
If they had made the movie all about dealing with Wakanda with no more T'Challa and they didn't make it involved with Namor and all that, I probably would have enjoyed the movie more.
mm.
But Namor and all that, I just was like, this is. He was a cool character. Yeah.
Cool look. Looks better than he does in
Cool
the
look.
comics.
Does he have the winged feet in the comics?
Oh yeah, that's a constant of Namor.
Okay, I didn't know. That is a little funky. I didn't know how I felt about that.
Very Olympian.
Yeah, but like, I didn't really care about him. I
Mm.
was like, at points, I was like, oh, maybe something interesting with him. But the whole time, I also felt like this plot is not that interesting.
See, I don't have a problem with the plot. It's the pacing of things that I have an issue with.
It'll go really fast and really slow with things.
And sometimes not the right things. Like
Yeah,
sometimes they slow it down for the right moment. A particular scene between Shuri and M'Baku that we'll talk about in the
yeah,
spoiler section was so well done. I think we spent too much time in Talokan, in my opinion.
yeah.
And finally, in my opinion, the best performance in this film. Let's talk about Queen Ramonda, portrayed by Angela Bassett. Shatter from the Bumblebee movie for any Transformers fan out there. The sovereign queen mother of Wakanda who is grieving the death of her son, T'Challa. Bassett explained that Ramonda would be trying to balance leading her people, being a mother to Shuri, and keeping threats to Wakanda at bay, all while grieving the death of T'Challa, which is a lot for her to handle. While Bassett was initially unhappy with aspects of her character that we'll talk about a bit later, um, it was important to showcase have full progression for the
Yeah.
character. You get to start with her.
She. Did you see her shoulders? She's built like a truck. If she walked into a boxing ring, I'd put my money on her. I feel like she'd just whoop anyone.
She's got the mom strength too, so you know you gotta be careful.
She looks like she'd just snap your neck without beating a sweat. Uh, she is so good in this movie. As you mentioned, strong performance. Everything that she does, she's trying her best to do. Because not only in the first movie had she just lost her husband, in this movie, she lost her kid.
Mm-hmm.
She lost everything in the last few years.
Not to mention that Shuri and T'Challa were both dusted, and she wasn't. So she's been through this grief just non-stop since 2016.
I didn't know Shuri was. I knew T'Challa was.
Yeah.
But dang, it really just shows that her actions are pretty justified in this movie and how she reacts to things. You know, T'Challa was very open with things, and she was like, "No,
Mhm.
look at everything that's happened because we opened up everything.
Yeah.
Let's not do that." And you can see that she's just trying her best to fix things and to make things better for everyone.
Yeah, this is strongest performance in the film. One of the best performances in the entire MCU. Definitely top 3 performances in this phase. Like, so much praise I could give out. The emotion that she packs in and her speeches, the delivery of them is just incredible. This is truly top notch acting at its finest, which is cool to see. Always cool to see good speeches and good acting.
Oh yeah.
So just gonna rapid fire mention some minor characters that I liked that I thought were cool. Top of my list, General Atuma. Sick design. I love a lot of the character choices with him, but he is not given enough screen time to talk about him fully. I will mention him a few more times, especially when we get to some of the stunts and effects. Love Atuma. Ross, again, didn't need to be there. Love the character. Nice to see Ross again.
Yeah.
And yeah, those are essentially the 2 I wanted to mention from this one.
There was Valentina or whatever.
Valentina was there. Namora was there. Namora. Namora seems a lot more evil than Namor does.
Yeah.
Just want to establish that, but I'm hoping just on a
Though
random.
Namor was never actually really named.
Well, you did say his name was Namor. Oh, you Namora? Yeah, no.
Yeah.
I think her name is said at the like in the subtitles at the end.
Yeah.
At least Atuma is named a few times throughout.
Yeah.
But yeah, more on Atuma. I really do want to talk about Atuma because he's cool. I like what they did with him. There's a lot of subtlety if you watch his face. He does a lot of acting with his face. So let's talk about the effects and cinematography. The effects are pretty impressive. The action sequences were sharp, and the impressiveness of Wakanda itself holds true. One of my favorite shots was a practical effect with Atuma when he jumps out of the water. When you first see the Talakans and launches his spear, that was a real effect. I saw behind the scenes footage where they launched the actor out of a pool and had him do the spear take, and you having to do it in midair. It took him 3 takes, but he finally got it perfect, so that they slowed it down, and that's the take they used in the film. Incredible. The water effects in this film are spectacular, especially in the flooding sequences. Just really well done. Anything you want to say about the effects?
You know what? I wasn't disappointed by the effects in this movie.
Which is different for MCU projects
Yeah.
as of late.
MCU lately has been pretty disappointing.
You can tell they took time with Wakanda Forever. I think because there was so much riding on it.
I think if I had watched it recently now, because I saw it when it came out, it's
Yeah.
almost been a month.
It's over a month. I think it was November 11th or something.
So I'm a little iffy on what I remember, but I do remember that they were pretty good with the effects.
Yeah.
There's nothing that sticks out in my mind that I remember that I was like, what the heck?
So the cinematography I really liked in this film. Incredible shots and selection of shots. Hard to talk about everything because of some spoilers, but every time Atuma and Okoye fought, the choreography on that, the cinematography, M'Baku's fighting at the end, and his action during the second act climax in the city, and the funeral for T'Challa. Whoa. Also, a lot of Namor's shots are framed epically.
Yeah.
And Talokan itself is really cool. While I do think we spent too much time there, it's really cool to look at. They nailed the spectacle of Talokan. That's what I
Actually,
gotta
I
say.
do remember something about the effects. Get to hear my little rant. The funeral scene. That green screen was so bad of Wakanda. I noticed it instantly. When you look behind the buildings at the background, it literally just looks like it was drawn.
Oh.
And I'm like, uh it's because I take notice of backgrounds more often now because of doing this. I'll be like, yeah, there's the main story. What's the background? I'm like, you did it wrong.
I was too
That's my
busy
little
holding
nitpick.
back tears at that opening to notice the background. It was well done.
It's
It was a
like,
great opening.
screw the funeral.
Anything you want to say about cinematography?
Cinematography was great. It was very solid.
Okay, let's move to the
I think
writing and
you
score.
pretty much said everything that I had to say. So,
The writing was good, and I feel comfortable saying it was good. It had a hard job to do. The lead actor's death was during production. The script had been finished, so the script had to be entirely changed. They pulled it off. It's not the best writing ever, but they managed to charge it with so much emotion and dealing with grief and the cost of hatred and war. It's very well done. It's not the best script in the MCU, and had it not been for Chadwick Boseman's death, I'd probably have a different view on the script. But I gotta take it in context. While I think the America portion could have been integrated better, I am. You can tell the America portion is from a version of the story where Chadwick Boseman is alive. You
yeah.
can tell that. But I gotta be honest, in context of everything, really well done on the script. I'm not going to judge it too harshly on its writing, even though it's definitely its biggest shortcoming. Not in dialogue either, just in pacing and integration of plot elements. I'm not going to judge it too harshly. Good job.
Yeah, it. As I mentioned, the plot overall not my favorite, but I found the actual character stories in the movie were very good and well done
Yeah.
because they all had their little personal journeys that they needed to fight through.
Mm,
So I enjoyed that.
yeah. The score was pretty good. Not as good as the first one. The first one, the Black Panther
Oh,
theme is like embedded in my mind with the trumpets and the drums. I love that.
I
So,
even like the soundtrack album that people listened to.
mm,
It was no one really cared about this one, and I remember when like the Black Panther album by Kendrick dropped, and
mm,
everyone was like,
yeah.
"Holy crap!"
Um, my favorite score moment in the film is at the end, but we can't talk about it yet. But it's a good score, just not as iconic as the first. And I often find that the trick to a score landing with me is the first song they play when the credits start to roll. That's the moment that the score really hits me. Like for example, Infinity War playing out to at first just silence and then a very dramatic score. Brilliant.
Because
Black
you're getting
Panther.
hit by the wall.
Mhm. Black Panthers, like the first one, goes into that that I don't know what type of music it's called, but it goes into that song that really stuck with me as because that one has a much more uplifting ending. And this one, it definitely matched the tone of the film, but it just wasn't as standout to me. The one we got for this one.
Yeah. A lot of people agreed with me that the soundtrack was, yeah.
Mm. So let's go to the heavy spoilers. So warning, warning, heavy spoilers ahead. Buckle up, folks. This is a big one. There's definitely going to be a few things I miss. T'Challa, King of Wakanda, is dying from an illness which his sister Shuri believes can be cured by the heart-shaped herb. Shuri attempts to synthetically recreate the herb that was destroyed by Killmonger in the first film, but fails to do so before T'Challa succumbs. What an opening. Playing out to virtually no score, and then the Marvel credits roll with no sound, just images of T'Challa.
I'm gonna be
Absolutely the
honest,
right choice.
it's a really good and emotional scene. I have a hard time sitting in a movie where it's just silence completely. I can't handle just silence, so I'm like, this is really emotional. but because of me being an idiot like I am, I'm trying not to chuckle because it's just silence, and I'm like, this is so horrible of me.
I liked it a lot. What an opening. This is where the
It's a
acting
very
performances go, like, straight from go. Ramonda and Shuri. Holy cow.
oh yeah.
So 1 year later, Wakanda is under pressure from other nations to share their vibranium. Cameo from Eddie Carr, Richard Skiff from The Lost World. It was kind of cool to see him. With some parties attempting to steal it by force. That was a nice action sequence there with the Wakanda outreach post. Queen Ramonda implores Shuri to continue her research on the heart-shaped herb, hoping to create a new Black Panther that will defend Wakanda. But she refuses due to her belief that the Black Panther is a figure of the past. So there's our context opening. Again, Ramonda just brings the goods every scene that she's in.
Oh, yeah.
Just that
Very
UN
much
meeting
close
is
to power.
yeah. So now we get to one of my favorite set pieces. In the Atlantic Ocean, the CIA and U.S. Navy SEALs utilize a vibranium detecting machine to locate a potential vibranium deposit underwater. The expedition is attacked and killed by a group of blue-skinned, water-breathing superhumans led by Namor, with the CIA believing Wakanda to be responsible. I loved this scene. How the Talikans have the siren abilities, and then of course Atuma. So for those who don't know, Atuma is Namor's arch enemy in the comics. He is the major villain, and I'll talk a bit more about what was interesting with the performance because they kind of set the seeds for Atuma to try and seize power from Namor, which would be what's happened before and would fix the problems I have with Namor not coming across as an anti-hero.
Yeah.
If Atuma throws him out of power and Namor all of a sudden needs to ask for help from Wakanda, that would fix a lot of my problems with Namor.
Yeah.
But I love when Atuma lands on the boat and the one agent unloads rounds into him and he just looks down, looks back up like, your gun did absolutely nothing. And, and the feats of strength that the Talokans are capable of are incredible to watch.
It was all the fight scenes. I will agree are very much like
They nailed it. And again, it helps because they did so much practical where they could. Like Atuma, that's a physical costume. He had his skin painted blue. Like none of that is CGI, including his sick bone hammerhead helmet. That was all on him at all times, which is great. That's how you do it. Another trait I really like with the Talokans is how they all speak ancient Mayan. That was a nice touch. I liked that a lot. And the water rebreathers too. I thought that's really cool.
Yeah.
When I saw it on like the toys, I'm like, oh, a battle mask? No, it's because they're water breathers. So I'm like, that's really clever. I liked that. Except for Namor, who's a mutant.
Yeah.
Doesn't need it.
What a loser.
Not as cool.
Him and his feathered feet.
So Namor confronts Ramonda and Shuri, easily bypassing Wakanda's advanced security. I don't think Namor was ever better than his introductory scene.
Yeah, where he just kind of shows up. He's like,
Just walks out of the water, and then just how he performed and switching from the praise to the threat. I don't think he was ever better than Obasi. Also, on a side note, this was apparently Tenoch Huerta-Meja's first movie role.
Really?
It said, and introducing. At least first American movie role, at the very least. And he did a good job, honestly. Yeah. The writing lets down Namor a fair bit, in my opinion. Yeah. So blaming Wakanda for the vibranium race, he gives them an ultimatum. Deliver him the scientist responsible for the vibranium detecting machine, or he will attack Wakanda. And so Shuri and Okoye learned from CIA agent Everett Ross that the scientist in question is MIT student Riri Williams, and arrive at the university to confront her. The group is pursued by the FBI, and then by Namor's warriors, who defeat Okoye before taking Shuri and Williams underwater to meet Namor. This fight on the bridge between Okoye and Atuma. Absolutely loved. Every aspect of it. How Okoye has only ever lost one-on-one fight that we've seen, and that was to Thanos with the Power Stone. Watching her get schooled by Atuma really set the gravity of the situation.
Yeah.
Because, like, it becomes clear early on that Atuma is not going to be a major character. So the fact that a henchman just owned General Okoye,
You're like, oh,
yeah, it really set the tone. And, like, the dislocating shoulder and having to set it because Atuma is just such an epic person.
oh yeah.
It was awesome. So, angered by Okoye's failure to protect Shuri, Ramonda strips her of her title as General of the Dora Milaje and seeks out Nakia, who's been living in Haiti since the blip. This was where Okoye's performance was strongest. Ramonda and Okoye going at each other. Two amazing performances being fired off at each other.
Oh
It
yeah.
was electric. Loved it.
Oh, great.
So good. Namor shows Shuri his vibranium-rich underwater kingdom of Talokan, which he has protected for centuries from discovery by the world. Bitter at the surface world for enslaving the Maya, Namor proposes an alliance with Wakanda against the rest of the world, but threatens to destroy Wakanda if they refuse. Nakia helps Shuri and Williams escape, and Namor retaliates with an attack against Wakanda. This was a nice set piece, the attack on Wakanda. As soon as the water started leaking, I was like, oh, it's happening now.
And it was dramatic.
It was dramatic. I love M'Baku jumping into the river to save people. Mild
When he's just
continuity
kind
error.
of looking for a minute, he's like, okay, yeah,
Yeah.
interesting.
There's a mild continuity error, though.
Uh,
He hands his staff to one of the Jabari before jumping in. And then he emerges from the water to hit Namor with the staff. Where did he get the staff? Or it calls the staff to his hand. He is worthy.
His staff is more worthy than Moni.
Exactly. Only M'Baku. Um, so, in the climax of this sequence, the end of Act 2.
Wait, we need to just pause for a minute. The scene when Namor punches M'Baku in the chest.
Cracks
like,
his armor.
Oh, dang! Like, you think for a second he might have died, because
Mm-hmm.
gone. You're like, huh. In my theater, I don't know who it was.
That was your mom.
Just this shriek. This is just this scream of death when it happened. And I was living. I was laughing my head off. It's the weirdest sound this person made when it happened. Like, I was like, oh, dang, he got hit. And then this person's like, ah! And I'm like, huh?
I think Marvel should realize by now that if you kill M'Baku, there will be riots. He's such a beloved character at this point. It really set the tone for Namor's power too, as it is like M'Baku, super strong guy, swings his vibranium wood staff and it shatters, and Namor cracks his armor and sends him flying. Like, dang.
You're like, oh, dang.
Yep. So in this climax, Queen Ramonda drowns, saving Riri Williams, followed by another pretty impressive funeral scene. But man, losing Ramonda partway through the film sucks. Her performance was incredible.
It was definitely holding the film.
Yeah. Did you see that Marvel put Elizabeth Olsen forward for Best Actress for Multiverse of Madness?
Really?
Yeah.
It
Should
be
have
her.
put Angela Bassett for Ramonda. Then they might have a chance of winning. Because dang, what a performance. Namor vows to return with his full army, and the citizens of Wakanda relocate to the Jabari Mountains for their safety. Great scene here with M'Baku talking to the elders of Wakanda. I really liked that, how he just lays down the law.
Oh, yeah.
While still being like M'Baku. He's generally a nice individual, but he no funny business in M'Baku. Yeah. Meanwhile, Ross is arrested by his ex-wife, CIA director Valentina Allegra de Fontaine. You know, the thing they've been setting up for all of Phase 4, which now the Phase 4 ends went nowhere so far, for secretly exchanging classified intelligence with the Wakandans. Now, just a reminder that she appeared in our first project, first movie for this phase, as well as Falcon and the Winter Soldier. And we know she's in Thunderbolts, so
I think for what she's supposed to be doing as an importance, she really is does not.
they haven't handled her well yet. Her character in the comics, what she represents, and I'm not going to talk about it here because spoilers, but what she represents has huge repercussions for the MCU, but they have not handled her well.
No.
Even though this is heavy spoiler section, we're not going to dive into it now because who knows if that's even what they're going to do with that character or not. So after Ramonda's funeral, we get an amazing scene of M'Baku and Shuri talking, where Shuri throws back his own words at him from one of his first lines in Black Panther, "A child who scoffs at tradition," and she throws those words directly back at him. I promised your brother I would look out for you. It's like, oh man, I love M'Baku. Shuri uses a remnant of the herb that gave Namor's people their superhuman abilities to reconstruct the heart-shaped herb. She ingests it and heads to the ancestral plane, where she comes face to face with Eric Killmonger from Black Panther.
Favorite scene in the movie. I literally lost it in my seat. I was like, yeah! And no reaction to anyone else. But I was like,
it's quite the surprising appearance, honestly.
I was hoping that he'd be in the movie because he's such a good, did so well, good of an acting role, and then he died, and I was like, no.
I think that's actually my biggest complaint with Black Panther 1 is that they used 3 iconic Black Panther villains, killed off 2 of them, and made one of them a hero. Like, if M'Baku ever goes man-ape, there would be a lot of outrage that he becomes a villain. Yeah. Also, it's racist, so there's that on top of it, but yeah. It's like they made one of the iconic villains a good guy and killed off the other 2, Claw and Killmonger, so... Yeah. So now we get Namor, who's usually associated with the Fantastic Four.
And they were rumored Doom.
I think I heard that at one point he was involved, but then the script changed so much.
I think it was also good that they didn't.
Oh yeah, there was no room for him in this film. Unless a post-credit cameo, there was no room in this film for him. So Killmonger urges Shuri to seek revenge, like he did. Shuri dons a new Black Panther suit, yes, she is the new Black Panther, and is accepted by the other Wakandan tribes as the Black Panther. M'Baku urges for peace, but Shuri is determined to exact vengeance on Namor for Ramonda's death, and orders an immediate counterattack on Talokan. Preparing for battle with Ayo, assuming the position of General of the Dora Milaje, Shuri bestows the Midnight Angel armor upon Okoye, who in turn recruits Dora Milaje member Anika to join her. Williams creates an Iron Man-esque powered exoskeleton to aid the Wakandans. So, here's where we get an interesting Atuma scene. There's an amazingly shot sequence where Namor, and this was also practical, they filmed this underwater, where Namor floats down into the throne and they have the meeting about war. That was a practical scene for 3 of the actors. Namora, Atuma, and Namor were all there underwater.
I would have watched this now because
I've not seen the video for it, but the pictures of him underwater on the throne. The armies behind are definitely CGI'd in, but Atuma, Namora, and Namor were actually there. And here's the interesting thing, as Namor is preaching for war. Like I said, Atuma only speaks in Ancient Mayan. So we don't get much from what he says unless it's subtitled. But he does a lot of acting with his face, and underwater he doesn't need the breather, so you can see his face. And as Namor's talking, Atuma has a look that I've seen quite frequently animated in Transformers media on Starscream's face. Atuma's got designs for the throne. And it's a very easy way to make Namor what they want him to be, and Atuma is Namor's greatest villain, so I would not be surprised if the future holds something with the Talokans in the future. I would not be surprised. So using a seafaring vessel, which is super cool and gigantic, the Wakandans lure Namor and his warriors to the surface as a battle ensues. Shuri traps Namor in a fighter aircraft, intending to dry him out and weaken him. The pair crash on a desert beach and fight. Meanwhile, on the boat, you get a Tuma and Okoye rematch. I loved the choreography on Atuma carving his way through the Wakandans before Okoye challenges him, like the full 360s on the spear and M'Baku and opposite. I wanted to see M'Baku and Atuma go at it, but we got a pretty satisfying one with Okoye. Um, Although there's no way that blasting him into the water did anything to Atuma based on what we saw in the film. So he's going to be back. Same thing with Namor. Same thing happens to her, and she appears in the towards the end of the film with Namor. So there's definitely more to come from the Talikans. I'm pretty sure,
Yeah.
unless they decide to abandon it, which would be weird, but it could happen.
Yeah.
So Shuri gains the upper hand in their fight, but realizes similarities between their paths and implores Namor to yield, offering him peaceful alliance, throwing that vengeance line that Black Panther said to Zemo. I loved that. The callbacks were strong with the dialogue. Namor accepts because he was like thoroughly beaten,
Oh yeah.
and the battle ends. Namor's cousin, Namora, is upset at Namor's surrender, but he assures her that the new alliance will allow them to conquer the surface world one day. Like, he never came across as an anti-hero to me, just a villain.
Yeah.
Williams returns to MIT, leaving her suit behind, while Okoye rescues Ross from captivity. Shuri plants more heart-shaped herbs to ensure the future of the Black Panther mantle. Then we have the appointing of the next ruler of Wakanda. This is one of my favorite scenes. As they're all ready for Shuri to come and take on the title as queen, the royal jet arrives, and M'Baku walks out saying, "The Black Panther will not be joining us today. I, M'Baku, leader of the Jabari tribe," and he makes his challenge for the throne again. And according to, even though it was left to subtext and people could figure it out, it was confirmed by the director that M'Baku is now king of Wakanda. I know, it's exciting. Although every person who sat on the throne thus far has died, but we'll see what happens.
Sure. Okay. Hope for the best.
Yeah, T'Chaka, T'Challa, Killmonger, Ramonda. I'm like, oh boy.
Shuri technically died at one point.
But she also never sat on the throne.
Yeah, that's true.
I know. Shuri visits Nakia in Haiti, where she burns her funeral ceremonial robe in accordance with Ramonda's wishes, allowing herself to finally grieve T'Challa. In the mid-credit scene, Shuri learns that Nakia and T'Challa had a son named Toussaint, whom Nakia has been raising in secret. Toussaint reveals his Wakandan name is T'Challa. I wouldn't be surprised if we go through a time jump so they can have T'Challa back.
Yeah.
It'd be weird, but I wouldn't be surprised.
It'd have to be a pretty major time jump.
At least 8 years. Make him
Yeah.
14 or so.
There'd have to be something drastic for that to happen, I think, though.
Well, with the restructuring that's happening at the Marvel Studios right now, we could be in for something drastic.
Yeah.
Apparently, they're talking about canceling a lot of projects. It's interesting. As soon as Bob Iger came back and Kevin Feige was given control again, they're talking about canceling a lot of projects to focus on quality over quantity.
Yeah.
So it just shows how much Chapek really messed things up.
Yeah.
But this is not our talking about Disney's leadership. That's another topic for another day on a different source, because that's not a movie review.
Review of Disney.
Tyler and I once talked about having the Disney discussion, Disney podcast. But you know how Tyler is when he comes up with an idea, he thinks about it for a week and then never again. Favorite and least favorite scene. What is your favorite scene from Wakanda Forever?
Favorite scene was easily Killmonger.
Mm.
That was it.
Mine is M'Baku in Jabari Land with the elders. With a special mention to Okoye versus Atuma on the bridge. I loved the setting and the choreography of that fight. Least favorite scene.
There's nothing that like stands out that was terrible, but there are scenes that it's kind of like, I don't really care. I mean, it's pretty much a lot of stuff with Ironheart, and again, a lot of the American part just didn't really care.
Mine's the Ross subplot. Good to see him again. It adds nothing to the film.
Yeah.
What is your overall rating of Black Panther: Wakanda Forever?
Give it an 80.
An 80. It is my second favorite film from Phase 4. Beating out 89 Shang-Chi with a 91 Black Panther: Wakanda Forever. What it managed to pull off, mad respect. Good job. Next up for the Game Move Ride podcast is our season 1 finale, a retrospective where we're going to take a brief look at all the movies we reviewed and also pick some awards like the Oscars award shows for our favorite from all of them of actor, actress, picture, animated feature, song, score, cinematography. It'll be a fun
There
time.
won't be any assault in this one.
No, well, maybe we'll do it in house, and we'll give him a Will face reveal with the Will Smith slap. So thank you everybody so much for tuning in. Hope you enjoyed. For the Great Movie Ride podcast, I've been Gaston,
I've been Jerryofdom.
and we will see you in the movies. Goodbye, everybody.